Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing a second hour of a very special series with my guest, Tom Horn, and we're talking about the fallen alien agenda, the Great Deception, what is going to be happening. Tom Horn in the first hour gave a marvelous revelation of the amount of years before all this stuff is loose were there or within close proximity to the year 2008. Tom, let's talk about demonic Manchurian candidates, and then we're going to go in the last half hour, and don't let me get beyond this. I want Christians, I want you to explain what true believers can do and can expect. But let's go to this, the Black Awakening and the demonic Manchurian candidates, because I know what you mean, because I know you so well through your writings and through our friendship, but I want people to understand what you mean.
Well, look, early in this series, I had asked you if you thought the end times army of Joel, described in Joel 2:1-11, might be the unleashing of the Nephilim in the last days. Why that's been interesting to me is because my formal training told me that Joel was talking about a locust plague, but it wasn't until I became, seriously interested about Bible prophecy that I started studying Joel 2:1-11, and it's amazing if you read that text. I'm not going to take time to read it. He sounds like he's talking about the unleashing of giants and powerful beings who are running upon the earth, millions of them, and that nothing has been seen like them before, nothing will be seen like them again. I think the prophecy compares perfectly to Isaiah and Enoch and others, stating how the Lord is going to open a gateway. He's going to allow these Gaborim giants to come forth in the day of His wrath, like we were talking about before the break. Enoch 70 generations. But there could be an additional piece to this puzzle, this Black Awakening. I don't know if you read the articles, like Appearing in Darkness by Sue Bradley?
Yes. I've actually linked to those on my website, which, by the way, congratulations to Sue. She's done a marvelous job.
Sue is a great thinker. She's written exclusives for Raiders News Update and others in the past. She's a wonderful thinker. I've talked to her on the phone one time. I've emailed with her different times. But she's writing this series now called Secrets of the Black Awakening. And what she's doing is she's taking Pastor Russ Distar. Do you know him?
No.
Well, she's taking his predictions to heart that part and parcel to this end times deception that we've been talking about, that part and parcel to that is going to be a sudden flash of violence and brutality being carried out on the earth by tens of thousands of demonically infused humans, Manchurian candidates, in order to bring the world to its knees. Steve, I know you saw this article this week in the news where Satanists had captured these kids,
right?
And they stabbed them 666 times, 666 times, and then they ate them.
Right.
Well, Disdar's Black Awakening essentially says that kind of stuff is going to happen en masse all over the world at the same time that you and I are talking about this great deception coming to pass. Now, and you'll love this, Steve, and I know you will because of the book you wrote, the Genesis 6 Giants. In her latest article called What Lies Beneath, Sue Bradley, over there at Peering in the Darkness, she's talking about Adolf Hitler's fascination with Mount Untersberg. Am I saying that right? Untersberg?
Yeah, I think it's with the umlauts. Untersberg.
And this whole Nazi occult infatuation with the Aryan super race and the Ubermensch and even Atlantis, and the idea that a remnant of these powerful beings could be awaiting beneath the mountains. I mean, this certainly goes back to what we were talking about the first hour.
Sure, and that's what Hitler sent the Ahnenerbe throughout the world looking for these. I mean, we've all heard of the gross experiments done on different races of people. They were looking for the Nietzsche's supermen that they could genetically reproduce.
Right. Well, and anyway, in one part of her article, she quotes Andrew Collins, who wrote the book Gateway to Atlantis, which I've never read. But she quotes him where he's talking about, evidently, that the race of beings who were perceived to be gods were put inside mountains, or may have even been there long prior to their contact with humanity, and then long after, according to the various different legends you and I have talked about ad nauseum. Of course, this guy, he's writing from a secularist point of view. But I noted in her article where he concludes about the legend of the offspring of giants being bound beneath the earth. He says, he asks the question, was this the source of the notion that demons lived beneath the earth? He also says, could it have been the source of the idea that a group of gods were cast into the abyss or inside the earth? And then he goes on to talk about how he believed it was very likely and that it would explain the widespread pervasiveness of this legend around the earth, and that at any rate it would seem conceivable that all these universal belief systems have some sort of origin in fact. Keep in mind he's probably writing as a secularist. But what he's saying is extraordinary in that he is saying that rather than being universally concocted for no particular reason, even the most outlandish superstitions and beliefs had to have had their origin somewhere and in something which at one time was concrete. And he says that he brings all of this back. For instance, the myth of the black sun, which was connected to the myth of Osiris. And remember, early on in this series, you and I talked about Osiris being equal to the creator of the temple of the Babylon temple. Excuse me, the Tower of Babel. My mind went away for a moment. He says all of that was kind of a form of symbolic shorthand, something that was intended to be emblematic of the idea that there were things, giants, who survived the great deluge. So even secular writers, and I guess this is what stood out to me, believe that all of these ancient records are too widespread and similar, attested to by different cultures, to be fiction. That this idea that there were real giants surviving or held within the earth has to be true. Now, Steve, I believe that in these writings about the Black Awakening, there's something else here that is of interest to me, what Sue Bradley has written. This idea that there could be a demonic Manchurian candidates, many of them, being part of a great deception. You may have saw the article, that came out from, I think it was Discovery magazine this week, and it was called, Could an Inner Zombie Be Controlling Your Brain? Did you see that?
Yeah, I actually linked to that. I saw it on your website and linked to it. I read it, and I thought, boy, are these guys just about beating around the bush. Why don't they just talk and deal with what it is, I mean, the bottom line, inner zombie, there's no better definition to me for demon possession than that. Isn't that wonderful, Tom? Now they'll have new psychobabble sessions where get in touch with your inner zombie.
Oh, no. Well, Steve, you may be right. And all of this research, saying that they have scientific evidence that suggests that the self-aware part of our brain, in other words, who we really are, isn't always in charge. That's what the article was saying.
Well, I think Jesus encountered that a great deal, especially in the realm of Pharisees and Sadducees. I would say in dealing with religious people, Tom, from maybe some of your background and my background, I'm going to be careful. I won't speak for yours, but let me just say this. Our mutual former associations, I can say this. My former associations would prove that statement true.
Well, now, so let's say a couple of things. First of all, according to the article, they were talking about how that in the 1960s, psychologists, neurologists, they had